Hey, this is a Richard Sherman podcast brought to you by Super Draft Fantasy, the official fantasy partner of Caesar Rewards. To all my PFF listeners, it's time to get hooked up when you play. Get a $10 bonus when you deposit 10 by using the code PFF at registration. Just download Super Draft and start playing games like Super 15. Get your hands on some cash prizes, Caesar Rewards credits, and more. We're even hooking you up with free PFF Elite subscription when you sign up. Just download the Super Draft app on Apple or Play Store. Use the code PFF when you create an account, deposit $10, and get a free PFF Elite subscription. The offer is only eligible for new accounts. Sorry, everybody who's already subscribed, but new accounts, it's exciting. Super Draft paid fantasy contests are available in 34 states. Must be 18 or older to play. Paid contests in most states. Visit superdraft.io for all eligibility restrictions.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. Don't you ever talk about me.
Picked off. It is Richard Sherman. It's picked off by Sherman. Now, buckle up. Here he goes. And it is intercepted by Richard Sherman. Broken up. Picked off. This game is over.
All right, another week, another wonderful time for the Richard Sherman podcast with my guy, Mitch Eisenstein. Sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties last week. We had Devontae Adams on, and unfortunately, we had a, technical issue and error, but, things happen. I appreciate having him on. We tried to share some of those quotes with you. But this week, we've got through the wild card weekend, and not every game was exciting, Mitchell.
No, it wasn't. And it was a lot of the games were rather boring, especially last night's game, Rams against the Cards, and that's kind of why I want to start this conversation, Richard, before we start talking about the teams that are advancing. I want to talk to you about the teams that lost. What was the biggest surprise, I guess, for you from week number one? What team being sent home surprised you the most?
There was no surprises for me. That the playoffs went exactly how I thought it would. I thought Green Bay would. I thought San Francisco would upset Dallas. I thought that was a bad matchup for them. Obviously, Kyle in the playoffs is a magician, Kyle all the time, but I think he saves his best work for the playoffs. And I think it's going to be a great matchup with them in Green Bay. I think people underestimate what San Francisco did to Green Bay. San Francisco wasn't even supposed to be in the game with Green Bay earlier this season. They were injured, they were beat up, and it was a 2-point ball game, 28-30. But there were no big surprises for me.
Well, Richard, on that note, too, we talked about it last week. You told me point blank the Cowboys were going to lose to San Fran. And so while you might not be the master at daily fantasy football, I think you got a good pulse on what's going on in the world of football. So no shock there. And then, you look at the matchup between Green Bay and San Fran. I know you've been in a couple battles, obviously, with San Fran against the Packers in the playoffs. And it seems like Niners have the Packers number. Like you said, I would have to imagine the Packers are a little nervous about that matchup as their opening playoff round matchup.
I would expect them to be incredibly nervous. I think the last time they played, San Francisco was at a disadvantage, had some injuries. Devontae had a fantastic, spectacular game, as he always does. That's the all-pro he is. But I think that's, again, a poor matchup for them. I think, going back to just Kyle's assistants, it's not like Belichick's tree, where Belichick against his assistants, but, it's similar.
Right.
Kyle with McVay, it's no coincidence they've gone 6-0 versus the Rams the last 6 times they've played them, and the Rams would arguably, most people would say on paper have the better team, and the same is true with LaFleur. Kyle understands him, he understands the system, he understands the defense he's going against, and Green Bay has to show they can stop the run. They don't have Raheem Mostert with San Francisco for him to run for 200 yards. But again, Deebo Samuels has evolved and emerged as a very capable back, along with Elijah Mitchell, and they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah, and then we look at your guys' matchup against the Rams, and you look at the Monday night game, Rams against the Cardinals. The scoreboard was shocking, but seeing how the Cardinals played down the stretch, it really isn't that shocking. Do you think the Cardinals were a fraud all season, or did they just kind of regress to the mean?
No, I mean it's Cliff Kingsbury. You know what I mean? It's his mo. It was his mo in college. It's his mo in the league. You know, he's a poor second half of the season coach. And you know, I mean, who knows what that is? Who knows what the cause of that is? I think a lot of times in the league, you know, you can scheme up the first 8 weeks of the season, but once people have your tricks, they have they have the tape on you, they have the film, they can study you up. Then they have your tendencies. Then can you evolve, and can you keep evolving and keep evolving? And I don't think they did. You know, I don't think
they've been getting slapped around too. I mean, they came into Detroit and lost by, I think, 3 scores, you know, I mean, and then last night, it wasn't even like, they looked like the worst playoff team out there. So I think to your point, I don't know if coaching staffs just have plenty of time and you figure these guys out, or if it maybe they're battling the injuries without D-Hop. I'm sure that plays some role, but man, oh man, to just be taken by a division rival like it was nothing.
It's tough because, I mean, it's one of those situations where, especially defensively, they've been opportunistic, just like Dallas. You know, they benefited from a ton of turnovers, and that's you live by the sword, die by the sword. It's like 3-point shot in basketball. You know, if it's off one game, if you don't get turnovers one game, then can you play? Can you still be dominant? And you can't. You know, those teams shown that they don't have the fundamentals, they don't have the base foundation to win those games. And I don't know if it's the quarterback play. You know, obviously Kyler was a big part of that, throwing 2 interceptions. You know, he Carson Wentzed it in the end zone with the toss around. And you need better than that from him. You know, it starts with him. But defensively, I mean, for the first few drives of the game, they did what they should have done. Obviously, they gave a touchdown, but you can't win like that.
Let's look at your matchup this week, Richard. Buccaneers against the Rams. Obviously, you've had a ton of experience with the Rams, but and the Rams got the Bucs number early in the season. What is it about this week's matchup that's different from the one earlier in the season that gives you guys hope?
Well, I mean, if you lose, you go home. You know, Tom Brady being 14-2 in divisional games, you know, obviously gives the team a ton of confidence, gives him a ton of confidence. You know, you got to go out there and play the game. You know, it's a good matchup on both sides of the ball. Obviously, it's going to be a great matchup between their defensive line, our offensive line, their offensive line, our defensive line. You know, it's going to be a really good matchup. I think it's probably the best matchup of the week in terms of evenly matched teams.
Yeah, and it looks like, you know, last night Odell got more involved. Is he back, do you think? Is this back to prime Odell, or is he still getting back there?
Well, you know, I don't know. Prime Odell, you know, I don't know if he'll ever be back there. He was an incredibly dominant player there. But is he doing exactly what they need him to do in Los Angeles? 100%. He's doing exactly what they need him to do. They need him to be a complementary piece to Cooper Kupp, and he's doing that. You know, he's given him another weapon. He's given them production. You know, he's given him a lot of production. Matt Stafford has started to look to him more as people double Cooper Kupp, and you know, their offense is obviously benefiting because of it.
On Monday night, Cooper Kupp's name came up quite a bit in pregame, and Matt Stafford said he was the smartest wide receiver that he's ever played with. I mean, do you know a whole lot about Cooper Kupp? I mean, hearing him talk, his X's and O's reminds me of you. I don't know if he would be the offensive, you know, Richard Sherman, if you will, from an intelligence standpoint, but it sure looks like it. Knowledge of the game has been a huge, I guess, one of the biggest things that has allowed you to have a successful career. What do you think, you know, applying that to the wide receiver position, how do you think that helps Cooper?
Yeah, it helps if he's on the same page as his quarterback. You know, it helps tremendously. You know, that's a big part of it. If they're on the same page and they're identifying the same thing, then they both know where the holes are. Then it really doesn't matter what route he runs, because he's just going to run into the open space. You know, and if they're on the same page when he's doing that, it makes him damn near impossible. It's the same chemistry that Devontae and Aaron have, and they've developed it over years. You know, Cooper and Matt have developed it over a few months, and that's really cool to see. I'm sure they've put in overtime to develop that relationship.
And they also got Cam Akers back, coming off an Achilles injury in 5 months, and you know how that goes. He was involved in a gruesome collision with Buda Baker last night. I had thought the NFL was trying to police plays like that out of the game. Do you think that there should be offensive penalties for a situation like that?
There is offensive penalties for situations like that. They just never call it. I mean, this is an offensive game. They're definitely not calling it in the playoffs. There's a penalty for lowering the head and grounding the helmet, and as dangerous as those plays are, but they rarely ever call it. You as a defensive player, it'll seem like I'm complaining, but it is what it is. There's 1,000 flags for defense to give the offense a first down. There's no flags to really penalize the offense and cripple them on a drive. An offensive pass interference, they can take a turnover from the defense and it'll be 10 yards that they can get back in a play.
Right.
But defensive pass interference could be 90 yards. If you throw it 60, 70 yards and you underthrow the ball, it's a 60-yard pass. And that's what makes it tough. But that's the game we're in. And in the playoffs, they're not going to call these flags.
Yeah. I mean, that was just an ass, and not to mention the taunting that's been called all year that just was overlooked after that play was over.
No question. I mean, like I said, and they're telling them to swallow their whistles in the playoffs, and as they should to a degree. But things like that you expect to get called. Yeah.
Let's switch gears to the AFC. Cincinnati Bengals are hot. I think they're the team that is, the hot team, the hot new team on the block. They got a bunch of pretty weapons on the offensive side of the ball. I actually heard a crazy stat that 13 of the teams in the offseason this year, the postseason this year, were within the top 15 offenses in the NFL. Do you think that we're going to see a trend where teams are going to start to copycat what the Bengals have done and develop these elite wide receiving cores?
I don't know if you can. I don't know if they can copycat what the Bengals are doing, because what the Bengals are doing is they picked top 5 2 years in a row. They had the number 1 pick in Joe Burrow, and then Jamar Chase went 4.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't expect them to copycat that. I think this league has always been about developing your players and developing the guys you have. And obviously, Jamar Chase is having a historic rookie season, and he's a once-in-a-generation player, it seems, based off his production from his rookie year. And we'll see how he continues to develop. But it's hard to find those guys. And Joe Burrow is seeming to be the quarterback they thought he would be when they drafted him first, and it's hard to ever find that. I don't know if there's been a number 1 quarterback, a quarterback pick number 1 that's won a Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, there's very few that even won playoff games. And he's living up to the hype.
Yeah, they seem to have the perfect complement around him with the solid offensive line and pieces on, wide receivers that can make big plays, and Joe Mixon behind them. Do you think they have a shot this weekend? I mean, I'm not even going to ask you, do you think they have a shot? Obviously, they have a shot. Who do you think comes out on top between Tennessee and Cincinnati?
That's tough, because that's a really up in the air ball game, because Tennessee's going to run the ball well. We'll see what Derrick Henry has in the tank when he comes back and how limited he is. They play a lot of man coverage, and if they play man coverage against Cincinnati and their weapons, they're going to struggle. And sometimes that's you live by the sword, die by the sword. I think Tennessee is the better team. I think they should come out victorious, but I think the matchup, if they're going to man-to-man and play these guys that way, it's going to favor Cincinnati and favor what they like to do. They're going to isolate Jamar Chase. They're going to isolate T. Higgins, and they're going to have their way.
That's a profound statement, and I would love to see Cincinnati have a shot in the AFC Championship game. I think they kind of remind me of the Jags from years ago when they had that random run. So maybe they're this year's surprise team. And then the other matchup we have is going to be an insane one. Patty Mahomes against Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. Before we go there, I mean, we saw the Bills absolutely take care of the Pats. Do you think Bill Belichick's run an opportunity to win another title? Do you think that window is closed, or do you think he's got another one in the tank?
No, I don't think it's close. I think he's dealing with a rookie quarterback and he overachieved with the rookie quarterback that he had. I think people are kind of talking down on him now, but If you told them a couple months ago that they would make it to the playoffs and you have the run that they had, people would have laughed you out the building. So I think they're going to continue to develop. I think they're going to continue to evolve and make the game easy for him defensively. I think they're going to find more playmakers. Matthew Judon was a huge pickup. They did very well in free agency outside of Jonas Smith. I don't think they got all the production they wanted out of him. But I think that at the end of the day, I mean, he'd be pretty happy with the play. He's not happy unless they win a Super Bowl. But I don't know. The AFC is kind of it's wide open to a degree. I think their most dangerous opponent is in their division, and Kansas City. I mean, they played them really close, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So now let's look at the matchup between the Bills and KC. The Bills have been clicking on all cylinders of recent. They've added a run game, which is new to their offense. It seemed like they were just the dink and dunk team for the run game, and Devin Singletary's come on nicely here. What are the things you're looking at in this matchup, and who do you think comes out on top?
It's gonna be tough, because it's one of those situations where the regular season doesn't matter. Buffalo beat them in the regular season pretty soundly, and I don't know if they beat them soundly again, but I think they win the ball game because I think they're dynamic enough on offense. I think the quarterback learned from his mistakes last year, and he's starting to run the ball more and starting to use his arm and his legs and make sure that people have to respect both. And Josh Allen, and I think defensively they have, two of the best safeties in football. They have a really good pass rush, athletic linebackers. And they can play with anyone. I think they can shut the water off if need be, and they run a great zone scheme. And they have a complete and balanced team. And if Kansas City's defense plays like they did the second half of the season, then it'll be a close ball game, come down to the last possession. If they play like they did the first half, game will get out of hand quick.
So KC, you think that KC goes out?
I think if at the end of the day, if Mahomes doesn't have if it's a shootout in that way, then I think the advantage is Kansas City. But I think if Buffalo can defensively do what they've done all year, and they've been the number one defense, usually the matchup favors the defense, especially in the playoffs. When you got the number one defense going against just about any offense, in those years, usually the defense comes out on top. But, Kansas City has beaten that. They beat San Francisco. They beat us in the Super Bowl that year when we were the number one defense. So it can be beaten, but it's a dogfight.
It's limiting the quick scores. I mean, that's what happened to Pittsburgh. That's unfortunately what happened to you guys in the Super Bowl. If they can keep away from those 2-3 play possessions, quick scores, I think Buffalo's got a very, very sound opportunity to win this game. And frankly, I would love to see it as well. I think seeing fresh teams, compete is good for the game, and something that realistically could happen. Your former quarterback with the 49ers, Jimmy G's, had a lot of criticism. I mean, they drafted Trey Lance, they moved up and mortgaged their future to get Trey Lance, and it just it helps you guys get to a Super Bowl. Is pretty much done everything asked of them, but everyone's looking for the next, to next year. Do you think, independent of what happens the remainder of this season, you think Jimmy G should be the starter next year, or you think it's time to move on?
Oh, I definitely do. I think he should be the starter again. People forget that Aaron didn't start his first year. He didn't start his second year.
Right.
And they're so ready to rush him in there, and they're rushing him in there with expectation, and that's the hardest thing to do. It's because everybody's like, "Oh, look what Josh Allen did," and it's like, Josh Allen's first couple of years wasn't this Josh Allen.
No.
And then it's like, look at Patrick Mahomes, and it's like, yeah, but Patrick Mahomes had his growing pains as well, and it's cool that what he's doing, but if you send him in with those expectations, you have nothing but disappointment.
And he also sat behind Alex Smith.
Right. And it's like when you go and you put these expectations on him, Jimmy is winning ball games. Jimmy has a winning record and has won games and got you to the playoffs again. And it's like it's such a lack of appreciation that it's really sad, because the appreciation isn't going to start when Trey starts playing quarterback, because you're not even appreciating winning. Like, some of these fans aren't even appreciating the win. It's like, we didn't win. He threw an interception. It's like, so did Dak Prescott. And a lot of people would consider Dak Prescott a really, really good quarterback. And he threw an interception, and he almost cost his team the game. Well, he did. I mean, they lost.
Right.
And so when you sit there and say that, and they're saying it like as if they would expect Trey to come in and be perfect. And that's unfair. That's unfair to Trey. Because they're putting, like, it's almost like recency bias, and people wanting they want everything to be, because if he doesn't come in there and have immediate success, they're going to crucify him.
Right.
And that's unfair to him. It's like, hey, like, he's following a quarterback that was really good and really winning. So if he comes in here and he's not threading the needle, or he overthrows a couple passes, or he throws a few interceptions, you're going to crucify him like this, instead of saying, okay, let him develop, let him take his time. And that's the part where I think Jimmy G needs to continue to stay, because while they have this window, they want immediate success. Like, these fans want, hey, I want it now. And I'm not sure you would get that immediately with Trey, because he's a young quarterback, he may be, go off immediately and be an all-pro. But if he's not, it gets to be a really messy situation.
I agree with you 100%, Rich. I mean, the Niners are in a championship window right now. I think Jimmy has all the tools to help, bring that championship home. Trey Lance was one of the youngest quarterbacks ever drafted in this league, and he opted out of his final year at North Dakota State. So, he's fresh off a year, not playing, just training. And now he's moving into a compete now, win now, team in the 49ers, and he's had an ample opportunity this year to get his feet wet and show what he has, and he hung in there. But Jimmy gives them the better opportunity to win now. He's going to probably give them the better opportunity to win next year. What they do have after that is they have their future in Trey Lance on a rookie contract with a bunch of guys that are going to be veterans hungry to win. If in year 3 Trey Lance becomes that Patty Mahomes, comes that Josh Allen, now we're talking, but I think to your point, Rich, you don't want to put the cart before the horse, especially with these rookie QBs and young QBs, because you're going to ruin their mindset right away. And
you don't want to do it without Jimmy there. Because if you do it and you're like, whoa, this is a bit much for him early, that's it. Like, it's no argument, no debates anymore. No, like, where's Jimmy? No Jimmy to save you. It's going to be like, oh, you wanted to get rid of Jimmy. Now you got to reap what you sow. And, like, people were talking about calling for him to go in that Rams game and go in the playoff. Like, it's like, come on. Like, people act like these games, like this game is just, like, simple. Like, oh, rookies just come in here and dominate. There have been far between rookies that came into this game ready to dominate and play at the level that these fans expect them to play. It's like, but he's the new shiny thing, so the fans are like, well, we'll put him in. It's like, Jimmy has won you guys like 50 games or something crazy, like something silly. Yeah. I mean, you got to love what he's done, and you got him another win on the road against America's team. I say in air quotes, the Dallas Cowboys. And there's a ton of criticism of the Cowboys now. Dak Prescott signed a huge $40 million plus contract in the offseason, one of the top 4, I believe, highest paid quarterbacks in the league right now, and certainly didn't look it over the weekend. What's going on with the Cowboys? I mean, is there any hope for them in the near future? Well, I mean, there's hope, but I just don't believe in Mike McCarthy. And I said this, I mean, you can go back to last year when they hired him. Like, I didn't believe in that move. I didn't think that was a good move, because it's very lateral. It was lateral. You're only as good as your coordinators, but in his situation, he makes poor, like, game management decisions. And there's been a ton of guys talked about this, so I don't need to harp on those points that guys have already made. But that part of the game you just can't do. Like, the play, everybody's like, oh, they're killing the play, Dak Prescott. It's like, teams work these situations. Teams, right. That's not like a crazy, like, oh man, that's the one thing. Like, teams work 2 minute all the time. They work crazy situations. Hey, we might have to run through the end zone for safety. What if we have to do this? Hey, we want to run through this scenario if this happens. It's like, hey, it takes, I think they always tell us 13 seconds to 14 seconds to run a play with no timeouts, to get a play and to get back lined up to to the ball and run another play. They say it's 14 seconds. And now, to a lot of people, that means like, oh man, that's too much time. That's too much. No, it's not. To get all these people, hey, these people might be fighting over there. This guy might have tripped. This guy might be hurt. It takes 14 seconds to let the dude spot the ball and let's go again. And if you don't have that kind of time, you can't run the ball. You have to pass it. It has to either be incomplete or out of bounds, or you're going to lose the game. And so for them not to be aware in that situation, now you kind of expect Dak to be aware, but he's in the heat of the moment. Like the bullets are flying. He's in it. Like the coaches are a little bit further removed from it. So you would expect them to have the sound mind to say, hey, it's not 14 seconds on the clock. We don't have enough time to do this. Even in the most perfect like scenario, we don't have enough time. So we have to throw the football. Now, were they in a picket fence defense that was going to make it really hard to do that? Sure, football's hard. But you made an impossible play.
Right. Everything had to go right in order for that play, in order for them to have a shot at another play, right? I mean, the yardage he picked up, that's great and grand, but when you don't have a second play to go to the end zone, you know, with that amount of time on the clock, they could have realistically had at least 2, possibly 3 attempts at it. So, Richard, we've talked about every team except for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you guys took care of the Eagles pretty easily. Kind of to be expected, I think, with the way you guys were playing down the stretch. Tom Brady continues to look like he's the best 1 or 2 quarterbacks in the league. What have you seen, I guess, now being around him for week 1 of the playoffs? Has anything changed with the way he approaches the game? Is that killer instinct, you know, heightened for him, or what is it like playing with Tom now in the playoffs?
Well, I don't know. I'm not Tom, so I can't speak on all those things. So matter of factly, but he executes. I mean, it doesn't change. It's not like he's not sharp throughout the year. He's very sharp throughout the year. He was sharp in the playoffs, and he is a killer. You know, I mean, his reputation precedes him. It's not like he's done it for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. He's done it for 22. So there's nothing for me to explain. There's no magic potion where I'm in the locker room now and I'm seeing him do something magical. This is what he does.
I'm just curious to know if he's doing anything different than, I mean, you've been around Russell and Jimmy G and a handful of other quarterbacks throughout your careers. If he was,
I wouldn't tell you until it was over with.
Fair enough. I mean, whatever potion he's drinking, would love to have some of that. Holy cow, man. Coming in on, what is he, 44, 40, almost 45. So that's just got to be something something special to be around. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm not going to ask you to give a prediction, but you guys looked great last week. What do you think of the matchup against the Rams? What are your thoughts going into it? What do you guys need to do to win this game?
Oh, we're going to need to execute. I mean, it's the playoffs. It's gonna be limiting turnovers. It's going to be running the ball. It's going to be our playmakers making plays defensively. We're going to have to force some turnovers. They're going to have to hit Matt Stafford. He doesn't do well when he gets hit repeatedly. That's what San Francisco did to beat him. They hit him 13 times. I believe they sacked him 5 or 6. And that's what you got to do to get him off the spot. Obviously, you got to cover his receivers well to get that, coverage sacks, but you got to put pressure on him.
Richard, we've talked about all the teams in the playoffs. There's 24 teams that are not in the playoffs right now, and all of them are looking forward to next year. And their focus right now is on the NFL draft. I don't know how much studying you've done, if any, about the DBs coming into the league, into this draft, but is there any that stand out to you that you've evaluated?
I haven't evaluated him, but Sauce Gardner, I think his name. I just like his name. I think cool kid. A kid coming to draft named Sauce. He got the automatic first round.
And then he's got Kobe Bryant hanging out outside of him, man. Both the names, man. Kobe Bryant and Sauce Gardner. Would love to replicate that. And then just put the Georgia D line and linebacking core in front of that. And I think you're going to win some ball games.
You got a chance. And then you put what receiving core? There's Ohio State's. Put Ohio State's receiving core. You got quite the team.
We talked about that earlier. I'm telling you, man, they got the receiving core that they have there is an NFL receiving core. That might be the next Cincinnati Bengals receiving core right there. Just handpick all those 3 guys, toss them into one team, and you'll be in a good good situation there.
You would definitely be in a really good situation. And I think, I mean, the success that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are having kind of lends credence to the idea that of keeping a quarterback with his main weapon, you know, because I honestly didn't think that would work as well as it has. You know, just, hey, just take the quarterback. He's a good player. And who was his best receiver? Let's draft him too.
Right.
If at least we can put him in his comfort zone. And it's worked out video game like. And
literally.
If I think you might see that start to become a fad of like, hey, if we're going to draft this quarterback, like give him his best receiver as well if they can. You know, not everybody's best receiver is going to be a top 5 pick.
Right. I mean, they certainly. I mean, you talked about Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers having years of chemistry. I mean, these guys have been working together, at least known each other for 3+ years, 4 years. So. You know, but at the top of the draft, it's a unique draft. There's not really projected to be a quarterback in the top 5 picks. They say one might sneak into the top 10. It's really just defensive players, offensive linemen. I don't know how much you've watched Kayvon Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson, but those are the 2 DNs at the top of the draft. Aiden's known as a guy that, you know, obviously had great statistics at the U of M, energy guy. He's got a big body, 6'6", you know, has all the tools. But Kayvon Thibodeau is known as the athletic freak. Statistics not as great as Aiden Hutchinson's. If you're picking number 1, who you going with? The high energy guy or the athletic freak?
It depends on which scheme I'm in. You know, I think if I'm Jacksonville, you already have Josh Allen, very athletic guy, very dynamic. You want to complement him with something different almost, you know, so you probably go Aiden Hutchinson. But I think Detroit, you need a spark. You need some excitement. And I think you go the dynamic pass rusher, you have you got to deal with A-Rod every year. And so obviously you go on pass rush, but I think you go Thibodeau just because he's gonna cause issues and he's gonna make O linemen slide to him. He's gonna consistently cause problems for the opposing team if you use him correctly. And I think they have the ability to use them however they want. You know, I think that's what I would say.
What got lost in our unfortunate technical difficulty last night or last week when we had Devontae Adams on was a great discussion about the Packers fan base. And from the outsider's perspective, the fan base's unappreciation for Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, who's to say if he's even in the division next year? Right, Rich? I mean,
right. I mean, who knows? I mean, because if he's not there, I don't know if Devontae is there either. And I don't know, you know, Devontae doesn't have as much freedom to get away as Aaron. But I think, like we said last week on the podcast, it's just unfortunate how wishy-washy fans can be. You know, they're that way with players, at least with players. They're not like that with the organizations. It's not like they're like, hey, I'm not going to be a Green Bay Packer this week. They pissed me off. You know, they're going to be a Green Bay Packer fan, but, oh, Aaron Rodgers can piss you off. Now you're not an Aaron Rodgers fan. Now you're not going to wear the jersey. It's like, okay, but you're going to cheer and you're going to be happy that he's taking you to another divisional playoff game to the number 1 seed in the NFL, to potentially an MVP season for him if they don't give it to Tom. And you sit there and you're like, do they deserve this? It's just like we were talking about with Jimmy G and some of the faithful. And not all of them, because some of them have stuck with them the whole time. And it's okay to be frustrated with play. You know what I mean? To be frustrated with plays and say, hey, man, that was come on, we need better than that. That's fine. You know, that's part of the criticism. Sure. You get to be a fan. But for people to call for his job is much different. They were like, hey, forget that. We want Jordan Love. We want, forget that. It's time to move on to the next. Okay. All right. Hall of Fame. Generational. One of the best, not the best of this time period. One of the best ever. You're thinking, oh, we can just face and replace. You have lost your damn mind.
I'll say this. I don't think there could be, I mean, there might be a luckier fan base out there, but for a fan base to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it's kind of like Indy going from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. Right. I mean, enjoy it while you guys have them is all I have to say, because I would love to see what that franchise would look like if Aaron Rodgers were not Aaron Rodgers.
You're about to, and if not this year, in a couple years when Aaron's done. And they don't just grow on trees. And once that fan base realizes how they don't grow on trees, and they definitely don't fall to the number 24th pick in the draft, then I think we'll go back and revisit the Green Bay Packers fans that sat there and said, well, screw it, get rid of him. He's just a, they were calling to get rid of him. I don't give a dang what he did. He didn't do anything during the season. He didn't miss a game.
No.
You're mad because he's on vacation now answering the phone.
He's mad because he wanted to win, right? And they didn't make the personnel, changes in the offseason that they wanted. I'm talking 2 years ago, and they certainly didn't make the right play calls down the stretch, right? So
they're mad because he wants the same thing they want. But the difference is he's not abandoning them like they're trying to abandon him. He went out there and played some of his best football for you. You didn't do anything for him. Remember that.
Oh, I would just love to know what he's thinking right now, because he's so right. It's not even funny,
He's thinking, I got them.
Yep.
Right where I want them.
Right. Yep. And then the other topic that I enjoyed last week that got lost in the shuffle was our conversation about, I asked you, who is your top coaching candidate for this year? And you responded that you really loved Brian Flores and that he should not have been fired. Obviously, since our conversation last week, some new stories have been revealed, and there was talking about infighting between him and Tua, and him not being the guy that you can go out and have drinks with or whatever. I mean, does your thought process on that firing change at all, hearing some of the rumblings with him and Tua?
They were wrong. They should not have drafted Tua. They were wrong. They evaluated wrong. They did it wrong. Should he have said the things that he said to Tua? No, you don't ever say that kind of stuff to your players. Never. That's your guy now. It don't matter what you say. That's like getting married and saying you shouldn't marry the other girl. All you're doing is setting yourself up for failure. Right? You're never gonna have a happy marriage now because it's gonna be a divorce. But at the end of the day, he had a winning season and they didn't give him the tools to win. And they're gonna see what it was when they try to hire a new coach and he doesn't have winning seasons out there, and he's not as productive with the pieces that they have. He was maximizing that team, maximizing them. They were playing hard for him. They were winning for him. So if you're the owner and you're saying, hey, something besides winning is pissing me off, something besides football is what is making me make this decision, then you're wrong. And so if something besides the product that this coach was putting on the field is making me want to fire him, then you're wrong. And he's saying, hey, he had some disagreements with the quarterback and he said some crazy stuff. I can imagine what Bill Belichick has said to Tom Brady at times. I mean, right. He's talked about it. He's been MF'd more times than not by Bill Belichick. So,
and we're talking about Tom Brady.
And we're talking about Tom Brady, the greatest of all time. And now we're talking about, he said this thing to Tua that he should have drafted Herbert. Okay. There were times my coach said they should have cut me.
Right.
And I was all pro. Right. You're lucky I don't cut you after this play. But that's the stuff football coaches say. They're crazy. But at the end of the day, they went 8-1 over the last 9. That's probably the best record in the league outside of some of the playoffs. That's not in the playoffs, obviously.
Yeah, I mean that is an interesting position to be in. I'm curious to see what happens with Miami because Tua has shown flashes, but he's certainly not Justin Herbert, and I can understand why there'd be some frustration with that decision. But that, like you said, that kind of falls on the GM more than anybody else. So.
And then they kept the GM. It's like y'all are getting mad at the coach who was given these pieces. Like giving round pieces to fit in square holes, and
right,
and he made them fit in games.
And not to mention, let's not forget. I'm sure Brian Flores is probably in on conversations, but when you try to publicly trade a man for 10 months for Deshaun Watson. I mean, it seemed like Tua was just like, oh yeah, he can go in a 3-team trade to, the Washington football team or Carolina or whoever the heck it may be. He'll just be the afterthought. But the main piece we're after is Deshaun Watson here. I'm sure Tua was frustrated as all heck. And then he's got his coach barking down his neck. It's probably not the best situation to be in regardless, but I'm utterly shocked he got fired. I think Brian Flores, like you said, I think he's going to be an exceptional coaching candidate going forward, and I'm sure he's not going to be out of a job long.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate. You like so many people have said, it's a disgrace that the NFL is 70% black with one black head coach. And people were like, well, they should pick the most qualified candidate. And I was like, over the last couple cycles, how many coaches have been fired after 1 or 2 years? Right. They weren't the best, most qualified person for the job. Urban Meyer at the forefront. Joe Judge next.
That was the other guy we talked about. And then literally as soon as we stopped with the podcast, he was fired, as he should have been. But
as he should have been. You don't QB sneak from the 4 on 3rd and 9. You don't do it.
From your own 4. Maybe from you're at the opponent's 4, but
yeah, you still get slapped around for that. But it's one of those situations where and people say they're like, why you always got to bring up the race card? Because it's relevant. Because in these situations, it's very relevant. We're talking about the coordinator, Kellen Moore from Dallas Cowboys, who has not won a playoff game. They're like, he's one of the top candidates. The top candidate. They're like, he should 100% get a job. Eric Bieniemy didn't went to the Super Bowl back to back. And I don't think he has one. I think he has one interview. But it's like the standard is so different. They're like, oh, look at this brilliant football mind. It's like, what do you think the rest of these dudes are?
Right.
Like, a brilliant football mind doesn't have a color. And that's the unfortunate part, is because some of these people can't see through that. If you just erased the color from everybody, I think there'd be way more black head coaches in the National Football League. But you can't erase the color. All they can do is go out there and do their best to put a great thing on tape. That's what Brian Flores did. He did it the best job he could, went 8-1 over the last 9 games. They gave him the boot. The same as they gave Joe Judge, who ran a QB sneak on 3rd and 9 from the 4.
That is career suicide. If there is one, right? I mean,
but they're equally career suicide. One 8-1, one QB sneak from the 4. Both of them get the same thing. One had 2 years to get a team together. Looked like he had gotten it figured out. The only mistake I would say is when they didn't play Fitzmagic in that first year. They should have went to the playoffs the first year he was there, and whoever's decision that was should have been fired then. I don't know. If that was his decision, then
it's probably the same guy who made the decision to fire Brian Flores. That's just my guess.
They should be fired. If it was Stephen Ross, shut up. Get out of here. You need to be fired. Is there
anything that can be done to change, this? I mean, do you think the NFL has the proper protocols in place right now to affect change within the league, or is that you just think it's
No, they're not. Until owners are comfortable being around black men. That's it. You know what I mean? I guess maybe the owners take some culture classes and learn to be more diverse and learn to step out of their comfort zone. Because again, they have to be able to communicate with these people. Like, the owners talk to the head coaches all the time, like on a consistent basis. And I think there is there's a disconnect. Yeah. And it's like, you hate to say it, you hate to think it, but there is. That's the honest truth.
Well, Richard, you're in the coaching ranks right now, so.
Right. You know what I mean? If y'all looking for a head coach job for me, you know what I mean? I'm not interviewing right now till after playoffs and all that good stuff.
Oh, man. Well, Rich, it's been fun. I'll let you sign us off, and then we'll have to make our super draft, super 15 picks, which good luck again this week on that.
They didn't even give me but I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Mitchell, joining me again. It was fun. Next week we'll probably have a guest. We almost had my girl Erin this week, but schedules didn't line up. But it was good seeing you the other day. We're gonna get it again next week. and know that I'm going to beat Mitchell in this Super Draft, Super 15, obviously brought to you by Super Draft. Get in on it, download the app. Catch us on next time. Signing out. Hey, this is a Richard Sherman podcast brought to you by Super Draft Fantasy, the official fantasy partner of Caesar Rewards. To all my PFF listeners, it's time to get hooked up when you play. Get a $10 bonus when you deposit 10 by using the code PFF at registration. Just download Super Draft and start playing games like Super 15. Get your hands on some cash prizes, Caesar Rewards credits, and more. We're even hooking you up with free PFF Elite subscription when you sign up. Just download the Super Draft app on Apple or Play Store. Use the code PFF when you create an account, deposit $10, and get a free PFF Elite subscription. The offer is only eligible for new accounts. Sorry, everybody who's already subscribed, but new accounts, it's exciting. Super Draft paid fantasy contests are available in 34 states. Must be 18 or older to play. Paid contests in most states. Visit superdraft.io for all eligibility restrictions. All right, here we go. And all right, I'm not gonna do all that. So this week, Super Draft, Super 15, it should be OY, your guy, me, gonna beat Mitchell. Don't need to hear all that.
Nope.
Okay, Mitchell. Joe Burrow with my $5 pick. Gotta have it. Joe, I need you to be what you're going to be. Second, Deebo Samuel with my $5 pick. Two $5 picks. Come on now, y'all not hearing me. I need to eat this week. So now y'all obviously understand I can't. Yeah, I don't have a lot of money left. So with my $2 pick, Brandon Ayuk, who had a fantastic game last week and is going to have another fantastic game. A guy who I expect to be a bit of a horse this week for his team because they're going to double team Devontae. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Ooh. For my other $2 pick, and for my $1 pick, Juwan Jennings. He's gonna have a big game.
Play well. I don't mind that. I had Brandon Ayuk penciled in as well, so I'll have to make that change just so we don't double dip there. But I think that's a good strategy, Rich. I went with a different strategy. I shied away from $5 guys, so I'm just gonna go with a couple $4 picks here. I'm going to go with the always consistent, a little bit of a dual threat quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. I think a lot's going to be expected of him this week. Hopefully they get a healthy Derrick Henry back to give him some more success in the play action game. But independent of that, he's got a lot of weapons in A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, among others. I like Tannehill. Then I'm going to ride with my guy who we've been talking about a lot lately, Jamar Chase. He's had another exceptional week last week. I think the Bengals are going to live and die by the passing game. I think they're going to give him the ball a lot. I like him with the second choice. Then for $3 pick, I'm going to go with former teammate, the People's tight end, George Kittle. We talked about it a bit on the podcast. I think it's going to be a close game, and if the Niners get behind, they might abandon the running game a bit, and Kittle is a perfect option to pick up a ton of points. I think he's a safe bet with the $3 choice. Then I got $4 left, so I'm gonna call an audible on my planning here, and I'm gonna go with another $3 pick. I'm gonna go with Elijah Mitchell. Same reasoning. Richard likes the Niners this week. I like the Niners this week as well. Elijah Mitchell's been playing really good lately. I'm going to go with him. My lineup right now, I know Richard's worried. He's like, man, I didn't know you could assemble a lineup like that. I did. I got $1 left, and I'm going to go with CJ Uzoma, the tight end from the Bengals. He's not going to get a ton of targets, but he catches the occasional touchdown, and something tells me, Rich, he's going to catch one this weekend. It's going to move me to 9-3 on the year. And, our friends at Super Draft have been asking me for my advice a lot lately. And I just tell them to watch what I do on this podcast.
Hey, Super Draft, you guys need to, he had a fluky, he had a very Arizona Cardinals first half of the season. And, I'm going to go ahead and get hot in these playoffs. So go ahead and follow your boy. It's time for you guys to make your picks for the Super Draft Super 15. You know where to go. Download the app, Super Draft. Use the promo code PFF. You get some goodies. Go ahead and check it out. No credit card required. Have some fun. See you next week.